What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Seven Figure Flipping Podcast. This is Bill Allen. On today's show, I have a 26-year-old. I think he's about to be 26 in a couple weeks, he said. And they did $500,000. They're doing 30 deals a year, has a baby on the way, his first baby on the way, and is making a massive impact in the community. So we talked about some tips on hiring your first person or your next person, talked about some things about cash flow management, talked about some of his story, motivational. If you're a young person, if you're a kid, he talked about what he was doing at 10 years old, what he was doing in high school and college, some really amazing stuff. So make sure that you tune into this episode. Do not change the channel. You're going to love my guest today, Hunter. What's up, everybody? I have got an incredible show for you. Really excited about this one. My guest today is 26 years old, doing really big things in real estate. And I heard he's about to become a dad. So for the first time. So really interesting talk today. I'm excited about this. And I want to understand how a 26-year-old gets where they are, extremely successful in business and in life, and doing the right things, and has like a impact driven like goal and purpose, which is really amazing to me. So I remember when I was 26 years old, I don't even want to talk on the podcast what I was doing at 26. I was flying all around the world. I was a helicopter pilot. I drank way too much. I just didn't feel like I was contributing to society for sure as a naval pilot, but I definitely didn't have a focus on family, on business, on any of that stuff. I was really just punching the clock. So totally different space than my guest today. So I got Hunter Maat on the podcast. Hunter, how are you?
Living the dream. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, my first question to you is, okay, how much money do you make at 26 years old?
Super conservative number for this year is probably $500,000. I think
$500,000. Okay. 26 years old, making $500,000, and you're about to be a dad. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep. In October, we're having a baby boy. My wife and I were so excited.
Awesome. Well, congratulations. I remember what it was like when I had my baby. And there's a lot of people that are listening to this that are probably older than you. Some might be around your age, some even younger than you. We got a lot of kids that listen to the podcast too. It's really cool. But like, how does that change things? Like, how does having a baby and getting married, how does that change kind of what you do in your life and your business? Like, how did that change things for you?
Yeah, getting married was awesome. My wife, her name's Greta. She is the absolute rock star. Getting married, and just the way that she kind of helped shape and mold me, and the way that we're a team. She's not really involved in the business, but she's absolutely involved in my life and my character growth, and helps me be me. So that's been huge. And then the change that I've seen in my life with the pregnancy and with us having a baby here in a little bit was an urgency around the right systems, processes, and people all being in place, so that when that baby comes, I can be a really present dad and play the support role and be the father I want to be.
And what is that? Like, what kind of father do you want to be?
Yeah, super present, intentional. I love having the flexibility of the business to be able to, hey, last night the kid did not sleep well. Doesn't mean I have to just right away at 8 a.m. get ready and head to the office. I can have the flexibility to go, hey, the kid didn't sleep well. Maybe we're catching our hours of sleep in the morning, and then I'm heading in. Being able to work from home, all those kind of things are a big blessing. Character-wise, I just want to love our son really well. And the advice I got is take care of mom early. The baby just really needs her early, and then just be her support role. So doing everything I can to do that.
That's amazing. Well, the best piece of advice I can give for you that somebody gave to me was you came first, then your spouse, then the kid. And that's like the order at which you should take care of yourself and take care of things, versus most people, what they do is they take care of the children, then they take care of the relationship, and then whatever's left over, which is usually like negative tank, is left for you. So if you're not in the best place that you can be, if your relationship isn't in the best place that it can be, then you're not going to, regardless of even with you start with the kids, you're not going to be impactful or supportive of them anyway. Like if the relationship isn't good, if your relationship with yourself is not good, they're going to see that and feel that regardless of how much time you spend with them. So biggest piece of advice I can give to you that somebody gave to me that I thought was incredible. And I say it a lot to other people to remind myself of that, because I usually, most of us are givers. So we start the other way. So the best thing I can tell you as the baby comes is don't forget about you, then don't forget about mom. And then believe me, these kids will be fine.
That's really wise. I like that.
Okay, 26 years old, making pretty good money. Was it always like that? Like, what were you doing before this?
No, no, it wasn't always like that. I grew up with like a really comfortable middle class home. You know, our needs were met, but we weren't necessarily taking spring break vacations when I was young. Um, and so I always kind of wanted to create some more income, and I've always been really curious and had a passion for business. So I was like 10 years old, mowing lawns and investing in mutual funds, and then took all that money out when I turned 16 and bought a motorcycle. My poor mom, I wore her down for so long. I still can't believe they let me do it. I don't think I'm going to let our son do it, but hopefully he doesn't find this podcast. And then traded the motorcycles up, ended up selling those and made some money off that. You could call it the first flip. Started a digital marketing company in high school, helping small businesses with websites and social media, and took that with me to college. Would sit by the pool. I went to Arizona for school from Michigan. Was just working by the pool on the laptop, and I was like, man, I think I made it. But realized I didn't really love the work and wanted to find a business and an asset I could build into. So transitioned that into e-commerce marketing, and had some success in that, but ultimately didn't feel I was bringing the value to the world that I wanted to do. It was more just a means to an end than a life I didn't want to retire from. So towards the end of my college career there, had a lot of fun, didn't learn much, but had a good time, met some great people. I was thinking and praying about like, hey, what is the rest of my life going to look like? And I wanted to build that life I didn't want to retire from. So felt a lot of passions around real estate. Whenever we'd travel, I'd be on Zillow looking at houses and loved doing that. And my dad had been in construction, so I enjoyed swinging a hammer and having my hands on stuff. So kind of the perfect put the two together was flipping houses. And I just didn't know if that was just a TV show thing or if you could actually do that in real life. So found someone in our area who was doing it, and went to work for him and helped him build a nationwide wholesaling company, and then broke off to start flipping houses.
Oh, this is great. So, a couple things I want to ask you. When you 10 years old mowing grass and investing in mutual funds, where did that come from at 10 years old? Like who helped, like who was
Yeah,
pushing you to do that?
my parents were Dave Ramsey people, so they were all about, hey, when the money comes in, you split it into the different buckets, and then you invest it. So that was something that they helped me set up. And as soon as I kind of got the idea of like parking money and letting it grow, I didn't want to touch it. So for a little while, they had a setup where we would do chores and then we get paid, and then we could do with that money. Then that was our spending. So if we went out for ice cream, we could use our own money to do that. They found out that I just wouldn't do it. I just wouldn't buy ice cream with the money. So they kind of went away with that so that I'd be able to get the ice cream and spend some money. But yeah, it was my parents. My parents helped me set it up and set the core in there for it.
Cool. You still have money in the market and mutual funds and stuff like that?
None. My wife has a little bit of a 401k from her job, but I have no money in the market.
Okay. I was just curious because I was the same, for like probably 20 years. I was investing in the market, stocks, most index funds, like all index funds.
Cool.
And yeah, when I got big into real estate, I had a competitive advantage there and started putting my money there to just compound it massively. So
Absolutely.
and then what about the digital marketing company? Like you were young. How did you figure that out and start that?
Yeah, I was young, so that was my advantage. I was thinking through, what do I automatically have capacity in that other people don't? And it was, I know how to use a phone and use the internet. And there's a lot of business owners that have no idea how to do it and probably don't want to do it. So I figured, hey, I can figure this out, help people build simple websites, get on social media. And it was something that a lot of business owners I found wanted to do. They just didn't know how. So it was a pretty easy sales pitch, and I was cheap labor at the time. So it worked out.
How'd you learn that stuff? Like, did you have a mentor? Did one that you paid or one that you just learned from, or how did you learn at that
YouTube
time?
University for that. Yeah, it was just,
So you learned everything that you needed on YouTube. What about like pitching businesses and selling and stuff like that?
yeah, I just got my teeth kicked in. I still drive past a business today that I called on the phone, was like, hey, I'd love to help you out. Your website's terrible. Like worst pitch you could make. Like no sales skills whatsoever. Basically told them your website's terrible. You need to do a better job, but tell you what, I can save you from it. And they like hung up the phone on me, and I still drive by, and I'm like, man, I remember that being the first cold call, sitting there for 30 minutes, figuring out what I was going to say. No idea what I was doing. But just trial and error, keep going, and lead with those core values. Let people get to know you, and it went well.
Awesome. And then e-com, you moved from digital marketing company to e-commerce. What were you selling? Where did that idea come from, and how did that go?
Yeah, my best product was a mini projector. So you would basically plug your phone or laptop into this little projector. You could flip it up on its side and cast it onto the ceiling or the wall, wherever. You didn't need a whole big setup. And I would source those from Alibaba, AliExpress, and sell them through Facebook ads via a website and split testing a bunch of different advertisements. And for that, I actually bought a little bit of coaching help, and that helped shortcut me into it. So it didn't go
So was
great.
that your first entry? Was that your first entry into coaching, like paid mentorship?
Yeah, and I would say that it probably wasn't worth it, which is weird to say. But what it did for me was it spending the money to do it gave me the courage to follow through. If that makes sense, and that taking that first step and seeing that, like, hey, it didn't work out fully how I would have expected, but it worked out enough, gave me the courage to say yes to some coaching later on in my life, like the real estate stuff and seven-figure flipping, that actually got massive returns from the coaching and helped me shortcut years. So it was worth it
I
just
tell
for.
people that a lot. I tell people that a lot in runway and even altitude, but they come into runway and they're like, you know what? Like, this real estate game is not for me. Like, I've been in the group for a year. It's hard. I don't want to do it. I don't love it. And I'm like, you know what? It's probably the best $15,000 you ever spent in your entire life. Like, although you didn't get the results you expected, in a very short period of time, you figured out what you want to do and what you don't want to do.
Mhm.
And it's guided you and put you in a place. I mean, they got accountability, they got push, they got the events, like all the things that they got, and just realizing, and just like you said, it forced them to follow through with something to the point where they were able to flush out whether it's for them or not for them. Now, I mean, I don't really encourage people who are like, you know what, I'm going to spend money. I'm not sure if I even want to do this real estate thing, but let's spend a year doing it just to see if we want to or not. But like, if you have that desire, for me, when I look back, it was like 5 years of me watching the TV shows and being on the forums and like reading a couple books and like, oh, I wish I want to get into this thing. It's just so much opportunity cost that was lost for me over that period of time. Because I was really cheap. I was not willing to invest any money in myself at that time. So I think what you said is really, really powerful. Like it probably opened up to the point. So some people start with like, a book or a course or a video training, or, they buy something from an ad. And what that does is it shows them a little bit of results or what they don't want. And then for me, like I just went straight to the $25,000 program. I didn't even buy a book or a course or an event or anything before that. And so some people need to, kind of dip their toe in first with something smaller. And then some people are just like me, where it's like, I just jumped off the cliff. And so a lot of times learning what you don't want is really powerful too. You mentioned praying about it. Like, how important is that in your life and your business? So you just kind of like casually mentioned it, but I kind of wrote it down because I think I'm curious. Like, how do you bring that into your life and business?
Yeah, it couldn't be more important for me. Just like, even starting a business is so hard, and in starting a business, I grew in my faith automatically, just because it's so hard that I needed to lean on some help in my faith. The guidance and wisdom from it is crazy important, and then just shaping your core values and having the right heart posture in business matters. So my faith has been huge for it. I actually was with a friend of mine who doesn't isn't religious at all, and he's in real estate. And I was like, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you do real estate without having some sort of like higher power to lean on.
Do you bring that into your business?
Yeah, yeah. Whether it's directly or indirectly, I like to think my faith has shaped who I am, and I try and bring the best version of myself into the relationships in the business. So I hope that even if it's not directly spoken about, that at least people can experience and like feel Jesus' love just by the way that our interactions go.
I think we have a lot of believers that listen to the show. So I'm curious, like, do you have any tips for them of like how they can actually intentionally bring it into their business, whether it's, how they hire, the kind of meetings that they run or things like, is there anything that you do specifically inside of there that you feel like you've got kind of dialed in, you can share some advice and wisdom for them?
Yeah, I one thing that was fun to connect faith with business was there's this book, Prayer of Jabez or Jabez, I don't know how you say it, and it's really just asking God for His blessing in your life and in your business. So it goes in a little bit more in depth than that, but just putting that heart posture in front of it is an awesome place to start. And then just love the people in your business really well. I had a contractor. The relationship went kind of south. I think he got in a little over his head, and some of my money that I had fronted him for renovations went missing. And so when we hopped on that phone call to kind of discuss what happened, his expectation on that call was probably, "Hey, I'm going to get chewed out and ripped into here." And we got to lead with grace and just say, "Hey, I love and care about you, man. You know, life is tough. This is just a couple of pages in a really long story. It's all going to be all right. We'll figure it out together." So just finding moments where you can show grace and love.
How did that end up? Like, how did that relationship end up?
It went good. Yeah, we're still in the process of figuring out the end of that story, but it definitely is down a path that it went to gone if we had a blow up conversation that didn't get anything done for anyone.
Awesome. Are you sure you're only 26 years old?
Yeah, I promise you. 26 in a couple weeks. That's it.
All right, I'm gonna have to check your ID next time I see you in person. So, really incredible. Like that's, yeah. I think there's a lot of even folks that have been on this planet twice as long as you that need to hear that, and how to react and how to treat people, because it's a people business. I mean, every business is. The people are the system and the processes, and you get the right people. You treat them well. You treat them with respect. You love and care about them, regardless of what happens. The fruit is going to come, I believe. And so that's the hard part, is when there's like kind of a bad apple here and there, and you, again, leading with grace is tough sometimes. And,
Yeah.
but, you know, you take the time and you look at it over a long period of time, it's a small, insignificant piece of our life. And that portion of what's happening, like a year or two from now, you won't even remember it. You treat them well, they're going to remember how you made them feel. That's really important.
Yeah.
Uh, let's talk about your business. When did you start real estate, and what was kind of the beginning, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, I started in real estate right out of college. So it was coming right out of COVID. I graduated college in 3 years because I had some college credit from high school. So all my friends were still in school, and I was back. So I really got a lot of time just to hunker down, head down, work hard. So 12-hour days, 6 days a week, just putting in the work and learning. And started out within that wholesaling company. So made not much money doing it, but I learned a ton. And I literally started out just banging the phones, just on the phones, talking to sellers. We had marketing systems that brought in a ton of leads and filtered none of them. And so just getting blown up on the phones, having tough conversations, having conversations that went really well, and learning from that and figuring out how to serve people well in the wholesaling and real estate space. So got to start on the phones, and then started being able to do some of the marketing stuff, manage the sales team. And then by the end of that, a year and a half later, we had like 20 employees, and I got to be on the operations side, just kind of overseeing the teams and on the phone with attorneys trying to get deals closed. So I got like 10 years of real estate experience in a year and a half, which was so valuable.
Okay, so what made you decide to not do this yourself? And so this was, you were probably like 21 years old, it sounds like, just simple
Yep.
math, being in college for 3 years. And then you were in Arizona. So did you go back to Michigan after Arizona? This is in Michigan?
Yeah, yep. I
Where
grew up
was
in
this?
Zeeland, Michigan. So came back home. That was always the plan. I love being out in the West Coast and traveling and seeing a lot, but I love home and I love Four Seasons. So came back, and I had reached out in a Facebook group, a real estate investor Facebook group, which good advice for anybody that is looking to get into real estate. Find some of those local investor groups on Facebook and just start asking questions, getting to know people, interacting with the group. You'll get a lot of fruit out of that and build some relationships early that way. So I just found somebody that was flipping houses in there and reached out and said, "Hey, can I come work and learn?" And we talked, and he offered me a job when I got back.
Nice. And so, what was your point of like not starting a business? You'd been running a digital marketing business, you've been running an e-com business yourself, and you're like, you know what? And you're a college graduate now, and you're like, I'm going to go work for somebody else in real estate. Why didn't you just start your own thing?
Yeah, I was hoping to shortcut the learning experience by learning directly from somebody that's already kind of figured out those first, you could say, 10 steps. So instead of, in hindsight, I probably could have bought a course and taken action on my own and gone for it. But at the time, I thought, you know what, I'll just work and learn. So got around somebody that already figured out those first 10 steps and got to shortcut the time.
And then, so you got a lot of success in there. A year and a half, you helped this guy build his business. How did that conversation go when you were ready to kind of leave the company and go do your own thing? Like, what was that like, and what was that decision like for you?
Yeah. Again, I was kind of to the point, we were at like a year and a half point. We had hired somebody that I felt could take over my role in the company. And I was, again, thinking and praying about it. And I was like, Lord, I think I'm ready to step out on my own. I think I'm ready to buy our first property. Would you provide that if you think I'm ready? And the next day in my hometown that I grew up, I'd already named my LLC Maple Tree Home Buyers. But the next day, a house on Maple Street with a big maple tree in the front yard in my hometown, which rarely flips show up, hit my inbox, and I was like, I'm buying it. So bought my first flip and then let him know, hey, I bought my first flip. I'm going to kind of do both for a little while. But I think this is the direction we're going. So he was excited for me, which was great. And it worked out really well.
So most people would go to a place of like, you have a non-compete, like you can't do that. No, 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 no. I need you, and you help build a business. Like, why was he okay with that?
I don't know. I have to ask him. I think a piece of it was probably when I came to work for him, that was always the plan. It was always, hey, I'm going to come work and learn. And then my ultimate goal is to flip houses for myself. And I'd say that it was a big part of the business, but we don't compete because they were wholesaling and starting to go into all these different states. And I was my sole focus on flipping houses locally in West Michigan.
Okay. First of all, I think that's an amazing sign of an incredible leader. Someone who understands that if people are getting like outgrowing their umbrella, that they're happy for them and proud of them instead of spiteful and have to keep them. So what I always say is like, I have a lot of people, like I can name Val Brega as one, Andre, her husband, Chad King, Ryan Smith, Dee Dee Huey. These are all people that have worked with me over the past few years that now I see are running their own business. They left. They basically quit. They didn't get fired. They quit and said, I want to go do my own thing. And it's really incredible to go watch them do that. And we're still very closely connected. Like Val and Andre joined our altitude program to help build their business and buy more houses. Ryan Smith has been a coach for me for many years. He was in my 8-figure entrepreneur program when it was active. Just one of the just greatest guys. Dee Dee went with her best friend to start a bookkeeping business. She was like she was my first employee ever.
Yeah.
It's just Chad King, my partner in the apartment business and 7-figure multifamily. We've had a mastermind together for the last 3 years in multifamily. It's just been incredible to see them. And Nate Johnson, my COO, who is now my partner in our business up in Kentucky, where we buy houses and sell them on owner financing. He texted me last night. He's like, hey man, I know it's last minute, but there's a concert downtown. I have an extra ticket. You want to come? Like having those kind of relationships with the people in my life is so important to me. So I think that's really, really good. If you look at a leader, they're raising other leaders. So I commend him. I have no idea who he is or what he does now or anything, but I think there's a huge lesson there for anybody who's listening. Like if somebody wants to leave you, the reason is not because they want to go, like they're not appreciative for what's happening or they don't care about you. It's the fact that they're growing faster than you. They don't see themselves fitting inside your organization anymore. Like you have developed them and grown them and they're growing, and that's incredible. So you either need to expand your umbrella or you just need to let them spread their wings and fly. That's the advice I give to any business owner. And don't be fearful in the beginning when people come in and they're like, they want to do big things. Some people are like, oh, this person wants to run their own wholesaling business or flipping business one day. I can't hire them now. Like, no, that should push you to grow your business big enough to keep them in there. And so I see this all the time, and that's huge. That's why I really want to spend a few minutes on it, because I think like that thing that you said of, he was cool with it. That just goes to show that he's got a lot of things figured out. Because I'm sure that have you guys ever done a deal together, or do you ever buy anything from them? Like, have you guys made money together? What's that relationship like now?
Yeah, not since. We still keep in touch. They transitioned over to North Carolina, and then I think they pretty much shut down the wholesaling business now. And he's doing coaching for doctors that want to buy rental properties, I think. So his
Huh.
model has completely shifted from when I was there. But yeah, we still keep in
Well,
touch.
maybe he lost his star athlete and he had to he had to figure out some other things. So, and then what was it like? You did your first flip. What happened?
Yeah, terrifying. Yeah, so stressful. So stressful, but it was so exciting because it was my dream. So it was like I would wake up early in the morning to go work really hard and be really stressed, and I was excited to do it. So that first one was crazy too. I convinced my dad to leave his job that he didn't really like to come swing a hammer for me, which was wild. My plan was to YouTube University all the construction. We need to tile. YouTube how to tile. Thankfully, he again, shout out to my mom for riding on this roller coaster with me. But he left his job to come work with me. And I was like, hey, I'll pay you 50-50 on this first one here. And we'll just split everything. Like, we'll just split the first couple and then we'll figure out a salary after. So he had no idea if he was going to make any money. But he came and we worked side by side. It was some of the best memories. And he taught me construction in and out, which was so cool. And someday when he passes away, hopefully a long time from now, like those years that we got to spend learning and working together were really cool. So yeah, learned everything for the first time, had no answers, just questions. And thankfully by the grace of God, it all worked out.
How'd you guys do?
Good. We fell in love with it. My wife and I, we live in that house now. Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah.
yeah. I almost moved into my second flip. So
Yeah.
I tried to convince my wife to move into our second house. It was on some acreage. It had blueberry bushes in the front yard. It had a pool in the backyard. I renovated that house so that I could live in it. Like, did a crazy master bedroom and bathroom inside where was the garage before that. And oh man, I was like, I want to live here. It's close to the base. It had like 4 acres. Kids would have loved it. My wife wasn't having it, so I almost got her, but
Yeah.
yeah. So okay. So that one was that was like 3 years ago or so, or four, or when was
Yeah.
that? What year was that?
2022, spring of 22, I think is when we sold our first flip to ourselves.
Okay. So you're like just 2 years from then. Now,
Yeah. Yeah.
spring of 24. We're kind of like getting towards the fall of 24, so almost 2.5 years. And then like, what was it like? Was it how did you start kind of scaling the business up after that? Like, what was the next step?
Yeah. The crazy thing was trying to keep enough property out in front of us that we could roll from one project to another, but not too much property out in front of us that it was sitting with holding costs. So cash flow management was an extremely delicate process during that time. And we did 4 houses that first year. And that was me and my dad side by side. And then I kind of stepped off of the job site after that first year to work on hiring, raising capital, and purchasing more property. So then that next year we did 15. And then now this year we're probably tracking 30 or so houses.
And where in Michigan are you?
West Michigan area. So I'll buy anywhere from now I've got 7 or 8 crews going at a time. So we'll buy anywhere from Muskegon Market to Grand Rapids down to Battle Creek and across to the lake.
Got it. I don't know
Yeah.
Michigan that well. I know Grand Rapids, Ann Arbor, and Detroit. Those are like the
Yeah.
areas
We're on
that
the
I
Grand
kind of
Rapids side.
understand. Got it. Cool. So 4 to 15, then to 30. You mentioned cash flow management. What's your best advice when it comes to cash flow management? Because this is the thing that I see flippers just are horrible at.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough. I'm actually putting together a presentation for the runway group that they're going to get to see this weekend on it. But oof, one, I guess I'll give two. So the
Okay.
two things that have the number one thing that's bailed me out the most times was like giving and prayer have actually gotten me out of a jam so many times where you expected a property to close and use that money to pay for a contractor invoice that's coming in or something like that. And it doesn't happen. So many times the stars are just aligned, just perfect to have smooth sailing through there. And I've always found that the more I give and the less I'm holding on to my money as if it's just mine, the more doors seem to open up and things roll smoothly. Whether it's to your team, to your investors, to people you're working with, or to charity or church or anything like that. That's been a big piece for me. And then the second piece is fully fund your deals. Figure out how to do it. I know a massive thing for me joining Seven Figure Flipping was the Kiavi 100% financing. So the ability to fully fund my deals just keeps liquidity. And just because you have your own capital in your account doesn't mean you should be using that in your deal. You can, I'm a big believer in parking a good chunk of my own capital just to sit it in the business so that it's my get out of jail free money when the unexpected happens.
I think that's great advice. I feel like, I was on a little bit of a cash crunch personally this week. And just randomly, I get this message and it's like, hey, I'm sending over 22,000 for this fee that you're owed. And I was like, wow, like I didn't even know this was coming. This is very helpful today. Like
Yeah.
I was getting to a point, I have a couple loans out that haven't paid back. And I was like getting to like red line emergency in my personal finances. And just like, but I kept giving, like I kept, somebody needed something. We had a waitress the other day who was just like, she came up to me after dinner at our date night with me and my wife, and I mean, we had just there was a little girl at the table across the way, and she just reminded us so much of James. She had a trach, and they were having a lot of problems with her, and she was obviously in and out of the hospital young. And I just remember all the years that it was hard with us, with James being in and out of the hospital with heart surgeries. And so Lucy was like, "You should pay for their dinner," and I was like, "You're right." And so we did that, and then the waitress comes over, and she just says, she's like, "That was so amazing." She's like, "May God bless you in everything that you touch in the future." And I was like, well, I just felt this like heart pull to ask her more about her life and what's going on. Her parents were in Mexico. She sends money back there. She works 7 days a week so hard. She was an amazing waitress. And I was like, Lucy, I was like, well, what kind of tip do you want? She's like, I whatever you think. And so we were able to bless her. And I'm just like, I don't know how I'm like, it was like kind of quite a bit of money. And I was like, I don't know how we're going to pay for this right now with what we have in the bank. And then right after that, the next day, just this text comes through, and it's like, wow, like this is
Yeah.
awesome. And I mean, it's that kind of stuff is, it's not a coincidence. Okay. It's the way you show up in your life. It's the way you do the things that you do. Like you said, prayer is so important and something that I need to work on to get way better at. I guarantee you can teach me a lot on that. Because somebody asked me the other day, do you pray for your business? And I was like, no, I don't. They're like, well, you should. And I was like, huh. And I had to start thinking about it. It's like last week, 2 weeks ago, my personal trainer. And so that's one. I think that's amazing. And the second one is cash flow management. The only thing that I'll say to kind of like put the cherry on top of that is I recommend you raise 105 or 110% of your all-in costs if you're listening. The biggest part is you'll typically a lot of overtime line, over budget, things that happen, like random things, and just having that extra little bit you're paying maybe 8 or 10% on. It's not a huge deal. Like it's that little bit of interest, but the cushion and as long as you're good at like managing the money and not overspending, it's because you have it, like you said, Hunter. But having that little bit of extra is always going to help you because you're always dipping into your pocket a little bit on that flip. From time to time, or fronting capital for the future. So that's the biggest thing that we did that was massively powerful. Is I recommend most people raise 110% of the all-in cost planned, just because those things creep up, or you have a contingency that hits you, things like that. And then I love not dipping into that money and having that cushion in the bank. Like so many people, when you're flush with cash, you're thinking about buying that next house with cash. That's gotten me into problems so many times because you don't see the 3 or 4 like landmines that are just waiting for you right after that. And the reason why you have so much cash in your bank account, if that's you, it's because you're not distributing any money to you as an owner. So also don't forget to pay yourself. That's my advice. Okay, so kind of built that business 4 to 15 to 30. You mentioned like a team and some of those things. What's the best advice that you would give to somebody out flipping? Some tactical advice? Like what are some like maybe it's how you're finding properties right now. Maybe it's how you work with realtors or contractors. You said you have seven. Like, what is the thing that you can best give to the audience right now where they're like, oh my gosh, like that was powerful for my business? I'm sure they've gotten a lot already, but like, what are some tactical, tangible things that you're doing that you can share to help someone, whether they're flipping, wholesaling, or getting into real estate or whatever, that you've done that other people aren't doing that makes you successful?
Yeah, I think something that for people who are rolling in the business already, the most massive ROI on your time and investment is going to be hiring an assistant, um, or a project coordinator, or insert whoever. It's that first hire that you make will change everything, because 80% of what you're doing day to day probably doesn't need to be done by you. And if somebody can offload all of those tasks and you can start pouring into to those people, it frees you up to go multiply. So definitely pull the trigger on your first hire as soon as you can, even if it's going to be a VA for $8 an hour that can do just some of the simple repetitive tasks in your business. It changes everything. And once you have the courage of that first hire, all of a sudden you start looking at your business with that who, not how mentality of how do I bring in more people to solve the right problems. And then you get to start building culture, and all of a sudden you have a true business, not just your own job. So for somebody rolling, make your first hire. For
How do
somebody
I
that,
figure out who that is? How do I figure out who that first hire is?
yeah, what I did was I wrote down everything I was doing every day for like a week. And then next to that, I would put whether it absolutely had to be me doing it or if it was a repeatable process that someone else could do it. And then I used a tool called Scribe AI, I think it is. So any computer task that I was doing that was repetitive, you just hit record on that. And then you do the task and it automatically creates a step-by-step with screenshots process for it. You just go in and tweak it a little bit. And then I would take that line item on my sheet of things that I did and I'd replace it with a link to that scribe. And then once I had a decent list of here's process wise how you do all these tasks, I just figured who's the right person to do these tasks? What are their skill sets and their natural giftings that I need to look for?
Amazing. I think that's a great tip. Scribe.ai is awesome. I totally agree
Yeah.
with you. And you nailed it. When I was getting started, I listed out on a piece of paper and I circled the things and moved them over and looked at dollar per hour. And I was the Scribe.ai writing the tools and the procedures. This stuff didn't exist 10 years ago when I got going. What,
Yeah.
how did you find seven figure flipping? Kind of like when, how did you find it? And why did you decide to jump in? You mentioned
Yeah.
Kiavi. Is there something else? So why?
Yeah. Oh, and I'll jump back too. I have one little thing for somebody that isn't already
Yeah.
rolling. Take really good care of your wholesalers. When we were wholesaling, we would send out a deal. Let's say the margin isn't right on it. Somebody would kick back a deal and they'd say, "You're crazy. You'll never get this." That doesn't get anybody anywhere. So take really good care of your wholesalers, especially if you want to be a flipper. Even if you want to be a wholesaler, take really good care of all the people you're going to do business with. Your competition can become your partners, and take them out to lunch. Get to know their families. Include them as if they're truly a part of your team and your company. That's been really huge for us to have great relationships, so that maybe we get those text messages or those private calls before the blast goes out, and we can solve problems together. So definitely do that if you're not rolling. And then for seven figure flipping, I found you guys actually through my Kiavi rep initially, because I was like, hey, do you have any 100% financing offers? Because I know Backflip had just come out and was going to be allowing that. And they're like, we don't unless you're part of seven figure flipping. And I was like, I think I've heard of that. And it was actually the podcast that we're on right now that I'd actually listened to a handful of times and really enjoyed. So then I dove into the podcast a lot more because I was curious about joining and just loved the core values match of it's not like you'll see those advertisements for become a real estate investor with no money, drive a Lamborghini, and just make it rain in your penthouse in Miami. And it's like, that's not the life that I'm trying to build. I'm trying to build something really cool and valuable that can do good things for the world and provide for my family. So, and I felt that was a core value match that seven figure had. So then a wholesaler in my area actually came up that he was a part of it, picked his brain about it. Shout out to Jameson. And he said, yeah, it's a really good group of people. Like what you're thinking it is right on track. So you should definitely become a part of it. So joined up and it's been awesome.
What do you think it's done for your business? Like how has it changed some of the ways, like what are some of the takeaways that you have?
Yeah, right off the rip, I had the opportunity to buy a 5 pack of houses. So at this time, I'd done like 12 flips total. So to buy 5 houses at one time was a crazy idea. From a cash flow standpoint, a team standpoint, all of it was going to absolutely maximize capacity. Being a part of 7 figure flipping gave me the confidence to do that. From, hey, if I need help building out a team or finding my next hired or doing any of that, there are people who have already done it that I can lean on for that. And then having the 100% financing from Kiavi gave me the confidence to be able to close and have the cash flow to operate those deals effectively.
Nice. What's the thing that if I got rid of everything in the program, the one thing that I couldn't get rid of? Like if got rid of everything, like I was just starting over, what's the
Mm.
one thing that you're like, Bill, you cannot get rid of this thing for you?
If I'm thinking about revenue for your business, I would say the Kiavi 100% financing. That's an awesome partnership that you guys have. Like I think the membership growth could be really exceptional if Kiavi, like the Kiavi reps, could somehow get a cut for plugging in people to 7 figure flipping. Like if they could get a kickback of the first couple months or percentage, and they could just tell it to everybody that they're working with, that could bring in so many people. And it was huge for my business from that cash flow standpoint. Um, Beyond that access, I would say the meetups, just getting to spend those days around the people and sharing the struggle of the business, and so you don't feel alone in it, and also to just grow exponentially because you spend time talking to people who are really good people doing really cool things.
Awesome. That's the number one thing I hear is you can't get rid of the events, the in-person
Yeah.
events, because it just changes your mindset. And you said it. Entrepreneurship's lonely. Like I guarantee you're listening to this right now. You're running a business and you feel all alone. Like nobody's going through this struggle that I'm going through right now. I have nobody to talk to. My friends don't run businesses like this. They don't understand me. My family doesn't understand. You have no support like that. And that's what we do. Like it's like Entrepreneurs Anonymous, like EA. And so it really is. You come and we get together, and that's the intangible thing that's really hard to kind of portray to somebody. Is like you need support. You need somebody around you to especially when things are hard or tough, or things are going well. You need somebody to celebrate you. Other people are like, "Wait, you made $500,000 last year? Like, would you just rob from a bunch of old grandmas and take their house?" And it's like, no, no, no. You don't understand what we do. Like, there's hundreds of people that get paid, and we put so much money into the community just from one house. Like, we do 30 houses. It's like 3,000 people and families that we're impacting, maybe more, maybe 10,000 in a community. It's incredible. And so that's what most people don't understand. So, hey, what's the biggest tip you would give to a younger person, younger generation, maybe somebody who's 10 or 15 or 20 listening to this podcast? What is something that you would say to them that can kind of get them going? Like, what's something that, like, think back to when you were 10 years old starting your lawn care business. Like, what about the kids? We have a lot of kids listen to the podcast with our Teenage Tycoon group and our TV show that's coming out and all this really cool stuff that we have going on. Like, what would you say to the young people? I mean, you're still a young person. Like, I'm almost twice as old as you.
Yeah, it's super cool that you guys are diving into that too. I think if I found that, I would have been all over it when I was younger. I Advice that I would have is obviously build your mindset first. Depending on who you are and what your upbringing was, maybe you've already got the right mindset around life. I was fortunate that my family is a pretty positive family. They came from that Dave Ramsey philosophy, so they knew a little bit more about the utility of money than that it's just to be spent. But keep like growing that mindset, whether it's through books or podcasts or the right people in your life, to really have the if you have gratitude and generosity and the courage to do things you're scared of, you're going to go super, super far.
I like that. Yeah, a lot of people hear mindset. It's kind of like played out a little bit, but you're right. It's like 80% mental game in any business. And so when you're young, you don't even know what that is. So it's just like kind of what you're putting in your mind. Like, what are you watching? What are you doing? Where are you spending your time? Who are you surrounding yourself with? all that stuff comes into play. You want to have really good examples. And if you don't have a great example at home, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably do have a great example at home. Somebody, your parents turned you on to it or something like that. But if you didn't have the best upbringing, if you weren't the best student, like, you just don't fit into the system. Like, you don't fit into the system of school. You don't fit into the system of education. It doesn't mean that you're broken. It just means that you're different, and you need to play with a different set of rules. And that's what entrepreneurship is, and business is. It's just a different set of rules, and you can make your own rules, your own time, your own money. Like, you get to pick. You can be creative. You don't have to fit in this, circle these boxes or shade these bubbles. And if you're struggling in that area, then step out and find another one, and find people that encourage you to do that. And we're here for you for sure, if that's you. Okay. I want to do something I've never done on the show before. It's like a little bit of a fire round. I just have a couple questions, and then we'll wrap it up. What's Hunter Maat, what is the most money you've ever made on a flip?
80 grand.
What is the least amount of money you've ever made on a flip?
Negative 40.
You lost $40,000.
Yeah, I lost
Okay.
$40,000 on one house. That wasn't great.
Yeah, it happens. But what's the most amount of money you ever made in a year?
We've grown really fast. So last year, I think I put on my tax returns $250.
Nice. Awesome. 26-year-old. I don't even know what I would do with $250,000 at 26. What's the best piece of advice you've ever got?
Oh man, that's tough. That's a great question though. My easy answer is love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul, and with all your strength.
Love it. What's the worst piece of advice you ever got?
Be careful.
Okay, what do you mean by that? Why was it the worst piece of advice?
Yeah, it's just something so easy for people to always say, like even when around little kids, be careful, be careful, be careful. So much of what you want in life is just one step beyond your fear. Don't be careful, be courageous. You can be smart and courageous.
Love it. What is the one thing that you want to say to somebody who's listening to this to encourage them to get started, because they've been on the fence for a long time, they've been listening to podcasts forever, and they just haven't jumped, and they're just waiting for the right person to say the right thing? What's something you would say to them to encourage them to get started?
Just find your next step and take that step, and don't have every answer. Just have enough information to take a first step. You'll figure it out on the way. I mean, it feels like jumping out of a plane without a parachute, but believe it or not, you'll build the parachute on the way.
Love it. All right. We got a platform. We got an audience here. You're in Western Michigan flipping houses. What do you need? How can I help? And how can people find out more about you?
Yeah, you can follow along on some of the social media stuff. I think Hunter Maat, M-A-A-T, on Facebook and Instagram. Great spots to find me. I think I'm probably on Facebook more than Instagram. So shout out to anybody that is raising money. Use Facebook to raise money. It'll work. Reach out to me on there. Follow along in the journey. Shoot me a message. Love to get to know people. We're buying houses in West Michigan. So if anybody's wholesaling or looking to move deals or wants some help underwriting so they know they're putting something in contract for the right price, happy to be a buyer for you so you can reverse wholesale a deal. And yeah, always open to chat and get to know people and pour into people however I can.
Love it. I just followed you on Instagram. I wasn't following you before. So, okay. I realized that I didn't talk about something. So we have 5 more minutes. You're learning how to fly. Tell me about this.
Yeah. I have my mock check ride tomorrow, which
All
is
right.
so exciting.
So for those that have no idea what that means, what is that?
That is, in order to get your pilot's license, your final thing to get that license is what's called a check ride, which is basically where you spend a half a day with an examiner, a pilot examiner, and they grill you with all these flying questions from airspace to emergencies to everything. And then you spend another portion of the day flying, and they run you through maneuvers and emergencies and make sure, hey, you're not going to die in a plane, like you're a capable pilot. So tomorrow I have a mock version of that, basically a test run version with an instructor. So I'm close, which is exciting.
Dude, you did your you cut your shirt on March 29th on this post. Maybe it was a day or two before that, and it's August and you're doing your check ride. What have you been doing? Why did it take so long?
Been working. Flying's expensive. Yeah, I got to flip houses to pay for flying, so I try and stay busy working.
What do you love about flying? Like why do you like it?
It's tough to explain. It's tough to explain. It's funny how many people in real estate are also into flying. I think there's just a freedom component to it. For me, I'm excited to use it as a business tool as well. To be able to reach farther faster allows me to do more business. And it just feels like freedom. Another challenge that I can figure out and have fun doing.
I love it. I think there's a problem solving component about it as well. Like that's why I love it. It's like it's hard. It's never easy. No flight is ever the same. So like I've never flown the perfect flight. So I'm always making mistakes and learning and growing. I think growth oriented people really like it because it's challenging and it'll test you a little bit. So for me, that was a big part of it my whole career of just I felt like every flight is a challenge. Every flight is I'm being reviewed basically every flight or I'm reviewing myself. I think people that are constantly in the growth oriented growth mindset can get a lot from that of like constantly like there's always room and opportunity to get better and it has the opportunity to be very dangerous. And so, I think the skill set is definitely something that you constantly grow, develop, have to use and utilize for me. So really cool, man. I'm excited for you for that check ride to get that private pilot's license, and then it's probably on to instrument rating, and it's on. What are you flying right now? What are you flying at? Uh,
I'm flying Cessna 152 right now.
yeah, so I'm watching a video. It's this 152, man.
Little
That thing's tiny.
bushwhacker, having
Yeah,
a
for sure.
blast
It's
doing
like
it.
a little. I think my lawnmower's got more horsepower than that plane.
Yeah.
Um, but it's cool. I'm glad you're enjoying it. I wish you a lot of luck. It's a lot of fun and freeing it. And yeah, you could take that 152 or 172 and just go fly for dollars or fly all around to your different projects. So you mentioned using it for business. A lot of cool stuff that you can do. I'm basically using the plane to have a massive tax write off, have the plane for the family, and make social media stuff all with it and things like that. So,
Cool.
all right, one more time. Where can people find out more about you?
Facebook and Instagram, Hunter Maat, Maat, Maat. Follow
Okay.
along and reach out.
All right, Hunter, thank you so much. 26 years old, making awesome money, building a business with purpose, building business with purpose for his wife, his kid, his future kid, his family, and the community. I can tell you love the people. It's really awesome. So had a great time talking to you today. I wish a ton of blessings on your company as well. So, and for everybody's listening, if you want to jump into anything that we do, you can go to sevenfigurerunway.com, number seven, sevenfigurerunway.com. Fill out an application. Like if you're on the fence, if you're like, I don't know, I want to get started. Maybe I've done a deal or two and I want to start scaling the business. You're like Hunter, you've done 4 deals. You want to get to 15 next year. Runway is a great place for you, 7-figure runway. And then if you're already like doing what Hunter's doing, you're doing 10, 15, 20 deals a year, then look at Altitude, 7figurealtitude.com. They just happen to be all the places that we go fly in our airplane. So Runway, Altitude, and then we have a program called Top Gun as well. But would love to have you. It's a simple application. It takes a couple minutes. And the conversation is not like a big, heavy sales pitch, anything like that. A lot of opportunity inside of our program. We love our people. We want them to win. We want you to win. So come see us. We'd love to have you and see if it's the right fit for us and for you. We want to bring the right people in. So just like Hunter said, we really want the people to feel like they have those same values that we have. I can't put bad apples inside of a flourishing community and think that it's going to go well. It's not about the money. It's about bringing the right people in. So if that's you and you've been listening to this show and you feel like that's you and we're speaking to you, then there's a reason for that. You're getting the tug, fill out the application and talk with us. We'd love to have you. Hunter, thanks for being here. I'll see you guys on the next show. Bye.
See ya.